Okay, hi everybody. David Fogel, CEO of the Symphonina Foundation, with you again for another podcast, and I'm very pleased to be joined today by Chris Prather. Chris is adjunct professor at University of Central Oklahoma, and I've known Chris for a little bit now. Chris has been doing score engravings for my symphoninas. We're going to be recording again very soon with the Budapest Scoring Orchestra on January 7th, and Chris has been instrumental, as we say in the music business, in putting that all together for me. Chris, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good.
First, let's. Well, thank you. First, let's. I'm glad you're doing well, and makes for a better podcast. What are you doing? What are you doing for New Year's?
I'm actually going to go to I have some friends that are doing like this. I've never done this before. It's like a party where you go as a character, and there's like a murder mystery kind of thing. It's going to be kind of fun and different.
Well, are you hoping that you're the villain, or are you hoping that you get to figure out that it's not you?
Well, I think I'm figuring out it's not me. I'm a pilot who kills bears and has accidentally murdered some people in a flight once that I'm trying to keep secret.
Oh goodness! All right, it's one of those kind of parties. Very good. Well, okay, let's try now. I have to say, I congratulations to you this year. You were elected voting member of Grammy Recording Academy, and I've been listening to some more of your music as we go along, as we get to know each other, and it's all great. I do want to ask how you got started in music. I understand you started on the guitar, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I started when I was 8 years old playing the guitar. And then as I kind of progressed, my relationship with music got a lot closer when I was in middle school, and I was bullied a lot when I was on the wrestling team. So then I got really, really close to music from that as kind of an escape. And then it's just been like that, and I kept doing it, and now I'm almost 30.
Yeah,
I haven't
yeah.
stopped doing it.
But how when you picked up the guitar, did you have any musical influences back then? This must have been in the 2000s, I'm guessing.
I did. So I listened to a lot of classic rock music, and then it was eventually like Black Sabbath, and then it was like early metal stuff,
Oh, okay.
Rhodes a lot, and then it kept kind of evolving into more different metal stuff. So that was something I kind of liked. I mean, I liked Dream Theater a lot when I was in high school, and System of a Down, and so it'd be stuff like that.
Interesting. Okay. And then I think you moved on to keyboard, but percussion is your thing, if I know correctly. So what are all the
Yeah,
things that you play?
so guitar a little bit. Percussion is what I did once I hit sixth grade band and studied that in college. I play a little bit of piano too, a little bit of bass, and I've done like lessons here and there on various wind instruments and string instruments for the help as like a composer.
Which would be your favorites of those between the woodwinds, the brass,
Ah,
keyboards,
to
strings?
play or to
Yeah.
write?
No, to play.
To play,
Yeah.
definitely not the trumpet because God, the trumpet hurts so bad to
Really?
play. Yeah, it's just like doing one long tone with my mouth. I'm just totally shot. I can't. So not that one. Sorry to
Fair
trumpet
enough.
player.
Yeah. Well, we admire every musician for what they do on their instrument, and each one has its own challenges. So I've admit I've never blown a brass instrument ever. So that's one of the things I would like to do. Maybe I'll have to buy one of these plastic trumpets and give it a try. Can't hurt me too much. But so how did you do on the violin when you tried the violin?
Violin was fun. It was kind of frustrating because it takes time to develop a good sound, so I just don't sound good on it. So it was I mean, the part that I thought was easy was the fingering positions because playing guitar, my fingers are used to moving like that a little bit, even though it's tuned a little bit differently, and you got to be a lot more precise and have an ear because of the no frets thing. So I didn't find also the coordination very tough because also picking with the guitar. So I feel like there's some similarities a little bit there with coordination, but then sounding good though. That's the that's the hard part.
Remember the very first podcast I did with Lauren Chan, and she was saying, "Yeah, it can take years to get a good tone, right? That's what kids work on the most, probably in their first years of playing violin. So no shame there, Chris.
Yeah.
That's for sure. So how did you decide to go to pursue music as your bachelor's degree rather than some other thing that might have interested you?
So that's tough because there wasn't a lot of things that really interest me besides music.
Really?
Um, I was Now I was pretty good at math, pretty good at science, at least in high school, and I felt like that was kind of interesting, but not something I'd really want to do as a career. So with music, it was I think I knew I wanted to be a composer, I wanted to write. So I went to school for that, but I started as education major, and then I had an experience where this composer David Maslenka came and worked with our group. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he's really big in the wind band kind of sphere. But we had a really amazing experience with him when he came, and I got to see what it was like for a composer to talk about their music and bring everyone together in the room and connect it around a certain idea and a meaning behind a piece of music. And that was really transformative and made me want to kind of be in that same type of position where I'm writing music and sharing that with people and connecting with people and talking about my music with them in rehearsals and all
Interesting.
that.
Yeah. So okay, so so you kind of changed your mind a little bit when you were in college as your general education major when you started. You just wanted to be probably a teacher, I'm guessing. Then most people who would do an education master's degree would
Yeah,
be thinking that way.
and it was kind of like at that time, and this is kind of funny because I teach a lot now, but at that time I didn't think I really wanted to be a teacher. But I was thinking about, oh, it would be nice to do something that could be a little bit stable while I'm studying school and still pursue the other thing. But I decided that I ultimately did want to focus in on composition. And I still teach too, which is a lot of fun. And I get to teach these young third graders through 12th grade at an after school program, which is my favorite group is the third graders.
Really?
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, that's probably about how old you were when you started that at 8, right? 8, 9 years old, third grader, I guess, something like that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's
Kind of
cool.
expected that, but yeah.
Yeah. So you got your degree from University of Central Oklahoma, where you're also an adjunct professor now. So did you
Mhm.
have any thought of going outside of Oklahoma, or?
Well, I mostly grew up in Oklahoma. I was a part of a military family.
Mhm.
My dad's retired from that now and works as a civilian, I guess. But he did the full 20 years, so we moved around a lot to different
Well, okay.
places, including Germany for a little bit, White Sands Missile Range,
Hmm.
which is just a dry desert. But it was now surprisingly compared to Oklahoma, it's a little bit more breathable. In Oklahoma, it's kind of humid and tough to breathe. There, it was a lot more clear, even though it was really hot. And then eventually we came back to Oklahoma, which I was born originally here.
Hmm.
Lived in Lawton for a little bit, and then Duncan for a lot through middle school, high school.
Yeah. When you started to think about doing music as a profession, there aren't many people in Oklahoma that we know personally. But a lot of people would give advice like you have to go to New York City or you have to go to LA, you have to go to Nashville to be successful. I guess it's probably not true, but maybe it increases your odds depending on what you're doing. So,
Yeah.
what were your thoughts about leaving Oklahoma since you dedicated yourself to music as your career?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've thought about doing that. And it's something, I mean, it's still something I think could be interesting to do. But I think what's really cool about Oklahoma is there's a lot of amazing musical organizations, even over the last like 10 years, that have come into existence, have been created, and are doing a lot of really cool things musically. A lot of opera groups here that do stuff, Oklahoma City Opera, Painted Sky, a lot of individual groups that put on different shows and concerts, a lot of different orchestras that are being created and doing things. So I think there's a really nice musical community here that's awesome and worth being a part of and that I enjoy.
Yeah.
I agree with you there where it would be beneficial if you were going after certain things, certain industries you wanted to be a part of to move.
I know that you work with Patrick Conlon and Christina Giacona. I think you're an assistant orchestrator for them, if I understand that correctly. Is that
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
Okay,
That's right.
so let's get into orchestration. So, orchestration is kind of like what it would be in English, right? We have to figure out how things in the orchestra are going to be played and how they're going to be arranged, and all their dynamics and everything like that. What, as a percussionist, primarily, what led you to focus on helping Patrick and Christina in orchestration?
You know, it kind of just happened because so I graduated with my master's in 2020. Things were squirrely then, as we all know, because of all that
Yes,
stuff.
indeed. Yeah.
And then Patrick and Christina were doing a, I forget the name of it. It was basically some kind of like internship in 2021 after a little bit after the COVID stuff. And from being a part of that, I slowly started working with them more. And then it became I was assisting with some recordings and some other stuff. And eventually I was helping them do some orchestrations. And it turned into an orchestration position.
It's great. How
One thing,
often do you get to do that with them?
it's like there's a variety of different projects that happen every year that I sometimes get pulled into.
Okay.
So it just kind of depends. I mean, we've done a musical before, which was very
Yeah.
chaotic.
Do you want
It
to
was
mention a few of the things that you've worked on?
We did this musical. It was like the Gene Kelly musical. I forget the exact title that we
Okay.
helped orchestrate. I've assisted with some different albums. I mean, one of the ones we did this year is the Impossible Dream album.
Which is Grammy nominated. Aaron Lazar's story, right? That's Grammy nominated. So congratulations for that. You're on a Grammy nominated album helping. That's awesome.
And I'm really lucky I got to help orchestrate or help arrange You'll Never Walk Alone on that one, which is really cool, along with Patty Drennan, who did the children's choir to that, and then Jordan did the piano arrangement. So I got to help add strings and some other orchestral stuff to it.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, when you're adding strings, I mean, you have to be familiar with each of the sounds of the orchestra.
Mhm.
So growing up playing guitar to escape and then getting keyboards and then trying a little bit of everything, I guess you do get a feel for how every instrument plays. But have you gone to a lot of orchestral performances in your life? I'm guessing you must have had a lot of orchestral experience before you sit down to try to orchestrate something for someone else.
Yeah, well, so when I was younger, I guess where I would get that one would be from I'd get the orchestration stuff from movies. I got my grandmother took me to musicals when I was younger, which was really cool. So hearing stuff that way, and then and of course you hear orchestras used sometimes in popular styles of music. So it was a mix of that. But when I got to college, I started listening to a lot more of that, and I had a composition professor who would tell us that as we're developing ourselves, we should be experiencing all different types of art, including going to orchestra performances, museums, dance stuff, all different things to try to develop ourselves. So I would hear, of course, going to a lot more orchestra stuff in that way.
Do you how this is a good question, really. I'm thinking like you could ask somebody who's a master at this the same question and maybe get a different answer. I'm not sure, but how confident do you feel when you're getting an orchestration piece, regardless of the genre, that you know
Hmm.
what to do?
That's interesting. I've never thought about that.
Yeah.
Because when I'm in the moment, I try to not get too much in my head and I just follow my gut instincts. So I guess confidence wise, what would be an example of something?
Well, let's say someone gave you. Well, we had in a Grammy consideration this year. In my view, is an excellent contribution. The 100-year anniversary of George Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue, is Rhapsody in Red, White, and Blue, orchestrated and everything. If someone handed you Rhapsody in Blue and said, "We're going to reorchestrate this,"
Ah.
how would you go? How would you be thinking about that? And what's your feeling on like, wow, okay, we're going to take something that is known by everybody in the music business anyway, right? And even many, many, many people who are not, they know that as soon as they hear the clarinet, they know what it is. So how would you approach something like that?
Well, that's tough. So if I was reorchestrating anyone's music at all who's like I would be incredibly nervous, especially with well-known stuff. So, but I would try to approach it. I want to do something different than what's already been done because people have already heard that. And that was actually a similar approach to You'll Never Walk Alone because I was listening to different arrangements of it. And a lot of times I feel like people try to go big with it. So I approached it more intimate. But so if I was approaching a piece like that, Rhapsody in Blue, I try to do it in a way that's different, interesting, that does something different with the piece than what people already know or expect.
Interesting call. Okay, that's great. One of the things that you've been extremely helpful to me with is the score engraving for the symphoninas that we've already had recorded by Budapest Scoring and also the International Symphonina Orchestra. And for those who are new to the podcast, that orchestra is an orchestra that I've formed with players from all over the world who record their parts independently, and then I mix them to have them sound like they're playing together. And Gary Gray, co-founder of the Symphonina Foundation, does the mastering, and then we release them. So we'll have Symphonina number three, my Symphony number three, released at some point in the 2025 year. And that'll be from the International Symphony Orchestra, which Chris helped with. And also, as I mentioned, Symphonina number four from me is going to Budapest on January 7th, and we'll be releasing that in 2025 as well. And one of the things I've noticed, Chris, is you have a great attention to detail, like super attention to detail. And for those who don't appreciate score engraving, it means you have to get every note on the page to be able to translate to a musician who's going to probably sight read it and have it come out formed the same way the composer intends. That's really the trick, right? And it's got to convey that to the conductor, and it's got to convey that to the performer. So the first question is, Chris, how much practice does it take to become a good score engraver?
I would say a lot.
Yeah.
Because also just because you see how many scores there's like a baseline where they all look pretty good, and then there's like another level where things are really detailed and sharp. But I feel like being a composer kind of you get a lot of engraving your own scores practice that way. But I remember there's like a few years ago, I mean, there was some kind of engraving project I got. I was taking this piece of music by the composer Ballard, and it was for the Fort Smith Symphony Orchestra. So I was taking a handwritten manuscript and I was putting it into Finale, which was difficult because just even telling what was written, because sometimes it's really hastily done. So I was trying to determine that. But doing that project, I did a few of those, got me really sharpening up my engraving that way and having to be quick about it and I guess kind of developing your system for how you approach it.
Yeah, you mentioned that composers get better at it by being a composer, but I did want to mention, the first 10, I would say, symphoninas that I wrote, I didn't work on a finale, B score, Sibelius, Dorico thing. I just played them into my Logic Pro on my keyboard, right? That's why I'm handing them to you to make the score. Now, when we get to Symphonina number 12, particularly, I started on my last little trip with my wife to Hawaii. We took a little vacation, and I loaded MuseScore 4 on my laptop, and I wrote the first movement to Symphonina 12 completely using MuseScore with no keyboard in front of me, and that was quite an adventure. And I encourage other composers, if you've not tried to do that, then try to do that, because it really makes you think the music theory through about what notes that bass line is going to have. You put the melody in, I think, pretty easily for whatever you're trying to do there. But if you're not really familiar with what the bass line is trying to do, what chord patterns you're trying to do, you can be hunting for things for quite some time. You,
Do you
you,
have
you look like you want to
a
say something, Chris. Yeah.
well, I had a question about that. Do you have like a favorite method of writing? Do you still prefer doing it in a DAW? Does doing it in MuseScore like change your opinion of wanting to do it, or is it like it was fun to do it like once or twice?
Well, that's a great question. I think the degree of comfort that I have playing the piano for so long makes it so much easier for me to know where my hands are going to go. They just go where they should go, right? After this long. So looking, I mean, obviously I can do it. I did it for one movement of a symphonina, 3-minute piece. That's fine. And I think it turned out really great. But in terms of the ease of doing it, I think it would still be far easier for me to just play what I want to play and then figure out the score later, rather than write to the score and then do the nuances of the articulations and things with the keys. But I think that also might just be a function of my own familiarity and everything with what I was used to doing, as opposed to learning something new. As an older guy, right? I mean, it's tough to learn new things. So, but it's if you're traveling, if I'm traveling, for example, it gives me an opportunity to compose something that I wouldn't have otherwise. So for sure, it's great. And even if you don't compose the complete orchestration of something, you can draft new melodies or new rhythms or whatever it is that you want to do, that might be snippets of things that you could add in to something else later. But I will say, for example, for our 2024 Best Symphonina of the Year competition, which is ongoing now, and you're one of the judges, one of the 21 judges, so thank you again for that. Almost everybody submitted a score. Submitting a score is optional, but almost everybody submitted a score along. So it's kind of expected, and I think it's a good skill to be able to think about how the music that you're composing is going to look to the performer and the conductor as you're doing it, right? And there are many things not to do, and some of them are illustrated very well when you go and put it on a score, right? It becomes plainly obvious what not to do. Um, and in case anybody's wanting an example, one would be like six divisi on violins two, like you get six notes being played with the violin two section, and nothing in the violin ones. That would be like, there's a missed opportunity there. So yeah, but those are kind of drastic examples, I guess. But yeah, I think I think with more practice, it'll get better. What are you working on for 2025?
2025. Okay. So while I'm working on getting my album recorded through Falling Rain, I told you a little about earlier about re-recorded some vocals with a vocal soloist this weekend. So I'm getting that ready. It's kind of a blend of a lot of my influences of classical rock, some Latin rhythms. I played in a Latin jazz ensemble when I was in college. A blend of all that kind of stuff, and it's kind of about my journey through grief and hits some stuff like that, and a lot of the different experiences and emotions we feel. I think through that. So it's gonna be called Through Falling Rain. It'll be out next year, and I'm getting closer and closer, getting stuff recorded as we go.
What kind of instrumentation should we expect on the album?
It's a kind of a variety. So there's one that's full orchestra, electric guitars, drums, electric bass, and then there's one that's really intimate called Eulogy. That's a cello solo that Tess actually is playing.
So for those
Um,
listening at home, that's Tess Remy Schumacher.
yes.
That's
And she's played the solo, and it's with acoustic guitars, cello solo, piano, some voices, and a little bit of electronic stuff in the background, kind of creating space. So there's a kind of a variety of different stuff throughout.
very good. So when you submit that for Grammy consideration next year, which I presume you'll do, what category do you think you're going to submit it in, since it's going to have so many different things in it?
I don't know. I haven't thought too far ahead.
I'll have to
I
figure that
guess
out. Yeah,
Indian one maybe, but I don't know. I'm gonna once I'm kind of gonna focus like in the current moment, and then as it gets closer, I can start thinking about it, pick people's
sure.
brains about what they think.
That sounds good. Do you look to do more freelance work in 2025? If people want to get in touch with you to help with their score engraving, orchestration, other things,
Oh
are
yeah,
you open
definitely.
for more work, or are you too busy trying to finish your album currently?
Oh no, I'm open for more work.
Okay. If people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do so?
If they go to my social media, that's one way. Chris Prather Music, and you can find me on Facebook that way, or just find me on Chris Prather. So you could message me through Facebook, Instagram. They could also send me an email at chrisprathermusic@gmail.com if they wanted to reach out that way.
That sounds great. Okay, Chris, we're going to let you go here and listen to some more of your music on the way out. And I want to thank you again personally for all the help that you've given to me. It's been great, and great getting to know you over the time that we have. We have a lot more symphonies to score together and
Yeah,
record together, and I'm looking forward to it. So thank you so much.
thank you. Thanks for having me on.